Today I wanted to talk to you about eating out. On one hand, eating out is similar to eating in. So you're just gonna try to focus on the regular fast away strategies that you normally use all the time, but while you're eating out. So, you're gonna practice intermittent fasting. You are going to focus on whole food nutrition. You are going to attempt to eat gluten-free, dairy-free. You're gonna attempt to avoid refined sugar and alcohol. Okay, so just keeping those things in mind, some things you can do while eating out, or some of my go-to meals. Excuse my dog. He likes to come bother me when I'm making videos. So he's making little whining sounds. Okay, so my go-to that most restaurants will have when I eat out is a salad with a protein on top. So generally this might be, a mixed green salad with grilled shrimp on top, with grilled chicken on top. Of course, I'm picking the healthier preparation of the protein rather than, deep fried chicken strips. I'm picking the grilled option. So, and then, depending on, later we'll be talking about carb cycling, depending on which type of day it is, either it is a low carb day or a regular macro day, that depends what type of salad toppings I'm going to pick. Any day, you can definitely go with mixed greens or some sort of romaine lettuce, spinach, kale, arugula mix, whatever it is, any type of green with a protein on top can work for any day. If this is a low carb day, I would focus more on a higher fat, lower carb dressing, something maybe heavy on the oil, but healthy oil preferred, such as olive oil, avocado oil, things like that. Generally, my rule of thumb with oil is if you hear the name of the oil and you know what that vegetable is, that is a good oil. So like olives, you know what olives are. You know what avocados are. The one exception that I can think of is corn oil. I would avoid using corn oil, even though you would know what corn is. But things like vegetable oil, I don't know, what kind of vegetable is it? Canola oil. What is a canola? Just generally use oils that you know where they came from, or you can recognize it. Okay, and then if it is a regular macro day, I might be looking for a lower fat dressing, which would usually have a higher carb content. Now, a tip on dressing in general at restaurants, sometimes you go to a restaurant and there's just no dressing that looks right. So generally restaurants would give you oil and vinegar, and then you can just douse in the oil and vinegar at the proportion of your choice. So that is my go-to meal that most restaurants would have. Then my sort of second go-to idea is just similar to my meal planning idea that I'll tell you about later. It has to do with a protein and two sides. So I do eat meat. So the protein would be like, salmon, chicken, a filet mignon. I don't know if I'm going fancy. Shrimp, scallops. So there's a protein there, and then a couple of sides. So maybe broccoli and a baked potato. So I would advise you at restaurants, since you don't know what the recipe is, frequently the more plain item is a better choice than the more fancy item. So for example, picking a baked potato and asking them to put toppings on the side, so you're basically getting a potato. Sometimes they might coat it in butter in order to cook it, but in general, you're getting a potato. And then you can kind of know what you're putting onto it. So if you chose to add a topping, you can choose the amount and what the toppings are. If you chose like a potato souffle or mashed potatoes, it's more difficult to know what they put in there. I love mashed potatoes. Occasionally I'll just splurge on the mashed potatoes. And then when we get to tracking, you can just put in mashed potatoes into your tracking app and put in, the default generic mashed potato since you don't know the recipe. So I would order at a restaurant, a filet mignon, asparagus, and a baked potato. So that is the sort of thing I would order. So let's think about special situations like when they bring something to your table for free. So you didn't actually choose this thing, it just came for free. But free to your bill is not free to your health. So just think, is this something I want to be putting in my body? And I I would emphasize, or I would recommend thinking through in advance these items. So the items I'm thinking of are the bread basket, the chips and salsa at the Mexican restaurant. So for me, I love chips and salsa. My old Tracy, before the faster way, used to think, filling up on chips and salsa was a good way to save more of my meal to bring home to eat later. I'm a big, bring it home and eat some of it later person. In fact, I frequently eat about half the meal that the restaurant serves because restaurants in the US do tend to serve ginormous portions. So taking about half of it home is probably a good idea. Okay, so the chips. What I do now, and this might be overkill for you, but I actually have decided that I'm going to have 5 chips and however much salsa or guacamole I can fit on the chips. I consider both salsa and guacamole Faster Way approved healthy foods. So I actually use my left hand under the table to count the chips because I don't want to be distracted from connecting with the person I'm eating with by trying to remember I've had 2 chips. So I literally go like this under the table as I'm eating chips. I try to spread it out because, I could eat 5 chips in under a minute, I'm sure, but try to spread it out during the whole time I'm waiting for my meal. The bread basket, decide. We're trying to eat gluten-free. We're trying to eat dairy-free. So like bread and butter is not really, a go-to item on the Faster Way to Fat Loss. But that being said, there are some special occasions or some, I wouldn't want it to be a special occasion every night, but if it's your birthday, if you love, we go to Stony River about 1 time a year, which is like a delicious steakhouse near us. They serve these, essentially I'd call them donuts in the bread as the bread. They're like poppy seed donuts. They don't call them donuts. They're like little rolls, but those babies, I will eat them. So I have decided in advance, I'm going to eat, 1, or I'm going to eat whatever I decide. That is what I will do. So I try to pre-think it. Another thing about restaurant eating and thinking it through in advance, you can check out the online menu and make some decisions in advance. So you don't get there and kind of panic and just revert to whatever you would normally do. So you're thinking about your health. And sometimes, I've noticed the healthier options may be a little bit more expensive, but what do I have if I'm not investing in my own health and wellness? What do I have to invest in? It's worth spending money on. So I'm less likely to try to get the bargain option than I used to be, but I'm just chalking it up to sort of a lifestyle that will keep me healthy longer and will save me money in the long run, because health is an investment, not an expense. Put that on your t-shirt. Okay, what else about eating out? I would like to say that I was on wait staff or managerial staff in restaurants all my, young working years. So for about 6 years, I was in the restaurant business because I was trying to make a lot of money, getting tips. So as a server, I'd like to just say to you, ask for special requests. Your server likely does not mind and might even like it. I liked it when people asked me for something special when I was their server, because I thought if I could deliver a meal that had their special request honored, I was more likely to get a good tip. So don't be scared to ask for things on the side. Can you substitute this? I don't want fried rice. Can you do steamed rice? Things like that. Feel free to ask, can that be cooked with no sauce? Can I get that grilled instead of the deep fried? All those are very reasonable requests. So, as a restaurant patron, some people are like, how am I going to eat low carb at a restaurant? It's actually easier to eat low carb at a restaurant than at home because there is a kitchen in the back all stocked up with all the things needed. I've rarely run into a restaurant I could not find something to eat. I'm thinking of one exception. I went to one fast food restaurant while I was on the road, and it really seemed like it was Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, Kentucky Fried Chicken is delicious, but I could not find any sort of meal I felt was compliant with the Faster Way overall. So I ended up ordering a kids meal, and it came with like an applesauce, a water. It still had like fried chicken in it, which wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but kind of looking over the whole menu, that was the best choice. So don't, you can order off the kids menu if you want to. Okay. I think those are about all my tips. So basically, eating out is a lot like eating in. Just try to adhere to the Faster Way lifestyle. Now, we do have a little mantra or a little catchphrase called memories over macros. And sometimes when you're eating out, it's a special occasion. So you're going to put your memories, making memories with people over, hitting your macrogram targets when we start counting our macros. But just remember, there's a day that is your birthday. Even though I like to say it's my birthday month, really, we're not celebrating all month. So just keep that in mind. So those are the tips I have for you for eating out. Let me know if you have any go-to restaurant meals, maybe that I haven't mentioned, and drop it in the comments. We can all kind of chime in and help each other. So hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon.